Thanks for joining us this morning. I know you have lots of options on Saturday mornings. This probably isn't at the top of your list. So we appreciate you tuning in for what is usually one of three this year or four. I think the more we discuss it, we'll be getting feedback from you folks as well, particularly next year as you've spent more time with us, whether, doing this semi-annually is enough or 3 times a year. But this is, it's been a while. In fact, it's been since late spring since we've done this. So we kept having other priorities sort of jump in the way, including our annual gala event and a number of other concerns, but we definitely wanted to get this done, particularly given that we've had so many coaches join us, whether you're in the process of becoming an active coach or actively coaching today. We wanted to try to get you all together and introduce you to the team before year end and spend a little bit of time with you, and so that you can spend some time with each other. I think there's some real learnings, particularly for folks who haven't begun yet, to hear from those who have. And so we're going to make sure we have some time in the program for that as well. We have the chat feature turned on. That's probably the best way as we go through this, just so we can, we've got a fair amount we'd like to cover in 90 minutes. So if you could use the chat feature with your questions, and then we'll try to, as I see breaks, we'll try to get those questions answered. But that would be the best way to share those with us. And I think without further ado, everybody see the screen okay? If you're just listening, that's fine. We are recording this, and we will make this available to you. We'll send you the link after we're done, and it's back up on YouTube. We will send you the link, as well as if you weren't able to see it or wanted to see the slides that we're sharing, as well as for those who aren't able to attend today. But again, I think we've got about 20 on the call, 20 plus. So appreciate that. Again, you joining us. We're gonna, if it'll advance with me, we'll see here. There we go. So here's the what we're looking at doing today. See if I can move my chat out of the way. There we go. So we're going to start with some introductions just right off the bat, and then I'll give you just a when it says brief, I mean 1 or 2 minutes of sort of where we started and where we are today, how you play into that. Overview of our process, kind of a behind the scenes look. Some of you I've spoken to, I've given you some of this. Some of you who are actually active are aware of the process. So this will be, again, a brief overview of our process. Picture's worth 1,000 words, so it should be helpful. And then we've got a segment where Andy and Carrie are going to ask you some questions around the active coaches around Sharepoint and your use of our client folders on Sharepoint. And then Andrea has joined us today. She leads our paraplanners. And this group is the group that does essentially the screening that you've all heard me talk about to ensure that we're matching you with the widow that's eligible and vetted really to work with you. And so Andrea is going to talk about that and give you an example of what they do so that you have a better understanding of how important that role is and what Andrea and her team does. Just some brief guidebook best practices, and then we'll jump into the success stories and best practices and testimonials, give you a chance for any questions, make sure we get your questions answered, and we'll wrap it up. All of that in about 85 minutes. So let's start with introductions. And I guess I'll go first. Chris Bentley. I'm the executive director of Wings for Widows since day one. Founded it on January 8th, 2018, and never really looked back. I also am a full-time financial advisor with Ameriprise Financial. I have a team as well, Bentley Croyder Associates. We're right here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with a couple of offices, and I've worked with a client or so. The first year, I'll wait till we get to the history. So let's go to staff. How about Carrie and Dana?
Okay, well, I'll go next. And I've actually got a list of everyone who's on the call. So why don't I call out people's names, then they introduce themselves. But I'm the operations manager for Wings for Widows. I've been working with Wings for, I guess it's almost 2 years now. And I'm kind of the point person that if you've got, any questions about what's going on, I'll be the person that you come to. Right now, I'm the person that assigning you your clients and sending you the DocuSigns for you to sign when you start up with a client. And I'm also the person that you send your coaching outcome forms to. However, we're in the process of transferring that process over to Dana, who is our other staff member. So Dana, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. I'm Dana Ferguson, and I'm here in St. Paul, and I am the one who sends you all the emails and walks you through the volunteer onboarding process and getting that all taken care of. And you send me your photos that go on the website and your bios. You do mailing out to, I send the widows their guidebooks that they use for coaching.
Andrea, why don't you go ahead?
Hello, everybody. I'm Andrea Jarvis. I also have been with Wings for about 2 years. Discovered Wings when there was a big article in the Minneapolis newspaper featuring Chris and Leanne and the work that they were doing with Wings, and found out we went to the same church, Chris and I, so we had coffee and the rest is history. My role, as Chris said, is to kind of lead the financial paraplanner group. I probably talked to 50 widows. My favorite part of the job is, actually getting to meet many, if not most of our widows. And it's just an honor and a privilege, as I'm sure you've seen as well, to be able to serve them in this way. So welcome to all the new coaches.
Maureen.
Sure.
Folks, make sure everybody's muted except for the speaker. That might help.
Okay, Maureen Revak. I have been working with Wings for 3 years. I'm director of sales currently at a Census, work with retirement products and services. So a little bit of a background in financial services. I'm not a financial planner. I'm one of the para professionals or para planners, I think is the new term. And I've done just a little bit of everything for Wings. I'm on the board. I am a widow myself, so was real interested in the marrying up of the widow experience with the financial services.
Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy Freed. I am on the board of directors. I'm also the IT manager for Wings, and I'm actually here to listen and troubleshoot if any issues have been coming up with our shared content system on Sharepoint.
So let's go and start talking to our coaches now. Let's start with Gregory. If he's still there.
I am. Excuse me, I had to unmute. Hold on, let me do this. I have you. There we go. Hi. I was delayed. I was actually on with another appointment into the first 5 minutes, so my apologies. Not a widow, but soon to be widow, unfortunately. And so I got involved and interested, and I was sharing with Chris that I lost my father-in-law this last couple of weeks, the last of our parents. I'm now an official orphan, and that's always, it brings the need to the forefront. But my background, I blacked out there. I see Tom Ghost Hawk on the screen. I don't know if everyone else sees that as well. Am I still connected?
You're good. Yep, you're good.
Yeah. So anyway, my background is I have 40 years experience, national sales director with Citigroup years ago when I ran with the Fast Cats. Then I had my own fee-based business, which I sold. So I'm a twice retired, failed retiree. And now I practice in Florida, specializing mostly in government employees, federal employees. And I do that both in Florida and in New Hampshire, my initial home state, which I am wise enough not to live in any longer. And that's my story. Really, my appeal for widows. Listen, there's nothing more important than genuinely helping with professional skills people in real need. It's not a game of trying to grab assets and so on. It's a real act of mercy. And that has great appeal to my sensibilities today. So that's my story.
That's
Thanks,
beautiful.
Ray.
Thank you. Ramesh, do you want to go next?
Hi, actually I'm driving, so I wouldn't be mostly listening remote. Can you guys hear me?
Very quietly, but we can.
Just barely.
Yeah, so I found out about Wings for Widows. I think a few months ago. I talked to Chris, and I have had few clients so far, and it has been really a very satisfying journey, I would say. So I'm really happy that I'm connected with you guys and working on this to helping some people.
So just this is Chris. So thanks, Ramesh. Really hard to hear you, but I will share with all of you. It wasn't even probably 30 days ago when Ramesh came through the same channel that you did through the FFP, and he completed the training and literally in about 2 days was assigned his first widow. She was wrapped up in 2 weeks. He immediately took on a second. And I think that was he wrapped that up in about 3 weeks. So literally in the past 2 months, Ramesh has come on board as a new coach and has already coached 2 widows. And it's unfortunate that he's in his car and now an experienced coach, an experienced new coach, may be hard to hear his success stories and hear about his experience. But if you happen to park, Ramesh, and we might be able to hear you better later. But thanks for sharing. Thanks for being on the call. And great example of how quickly you can go from inquiry to an active coach. So thanks for all that you've done for us so quickly here, Ramesh. Thank you.
Let's hear from Ross.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Ross Krauss. I am out in Seattle, Washington, so it's bright and early for us out here. I put a background up because it's still dark outside and my Zoom doesn't work when it's that dark. So I'm not in San Francisco. It's not bright and sunny. So I run my own practice. I'm with LPL. Been doing that for about a year. Been in the industry for about 10 years with accounting and financial planning. Joined Wings for Widows earlier this year. Wrapped up my second client to work with, found them through the FFP, and just generally kind of enjoying that I'm a solo practitioner at my own practice, and this allows me to kind of work with people, take some time out of my day, not have to worry about chasing assets, bottom line stuff, and just kind of sit down, talk, see if I could help and do it at their own pace. And I've enjoyed the process that Chris has set up here, which makes it less time consuming for me to create my own and work with them. And excited to keep going and see what else is out there.
Thanks for that. Let's move on to Frank.
Hi, Frank. I'm in the DC area. And recently signed on, and sorry, I'm out with the daughter trying to keep her busy. So if you hear a little background noise, that's her. Signed on with Wings, found through FFP website, and it was like after talking to Chris, that was like an immediate, it was an easy decision to sign on because the process and I love like the help, like the planning aspect, helping people. I'm a solo practitioner, have my own business, so this is a great way to reach out and help and be part of a community of like-minded folks. So happy to meet you all and looking forward to the rest of the session.
Great,
Thanks, Frank.
thank you. How about Angelique? Actually, I'm not seeing Angelique on here anymore. She may have had to pop off. Okay, I'll move on to someone else. How about Dennis?
Hi, I'm Dan Stockwright. I also have an independent practice. I picked up wings from, I recent passed the CFP exam, but also I had a lot of clients prior to that, and my mom was widow for like 30, 40 years. But I always see issues with when widows pop up, a lot of people, I hate to say, come out of the woodwork and try to get their assets. And neighbors and family members that pop out of woodwork, and I definitely want to try to help these widows be protected from people trying to take their assets when they're in their dire need, and especially under the first year is always the toughest year for widows. So I am Richmond, California. So Ross, I am actually in San Francisco Bay Area. So so don't put that bridge up behind you. Don't fake that. But I am also up early in the morning. So thank you very much. Oh, I'm new to this.
Okay, it looks like Angelique is back on. Let's see if we can hear from her. Well, I'll tell you what, let's move on to Eric.
Hey guys, I'll start my video. I dressed up for this meeting. I didn't know if there was a dress code or not. Chris, I apologize in advance for being dressed to do chores on Saturday morning. But my name's Eric Goldberg. I'm in Simi Valley, California. I work actually as a business manager for a firm called Bills and Stoll in Encino, and we work with people in the entertainment industry. It's similar to kind of a multifamily office. And I just talked to Chris yesterday after finding the organization on FFP, and my wife was widowed probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was a very sudden thing. And she had a lot of people that really helped her kind of start from scratch, which is she was kind of starting over. And so when I saw the organization, it definitely resonated with me, and I'd love to be able to give back and do some of the things that others did for her. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Eric.
Great. How about Tom?
Yes. Hi. How's it going, everybody?
You're at your brewery.
My name is, yeah.
Damn, we should have had a location trip. We should be over
Yeah,
there.
We have to go to New Jersey.
So that's just my background, I put, but I have a bit of a unique story. I started a brewery 2 years ago as kind of like a side hustle, and my business partner was kind of in charge of managing it. And then my role was eliminated at PNC Wealth Management. So then I started working at the brewery full time, but I didn't want all my licenses and my CFP and everything to expire. So I set up my own private practice. So it's nice because it gives me a lot of flexibility as far as setting my own hours and taking on as many clients as I want, or if somebody's not a fit, I don't have pressure with trying to get them on board, because, I'll send them over to Fidelity or Vanguard if they're not a good fit. But, I really like the idea behind Wings for Widows, because my stepsister tragically became a widow about 5 years ago when she must have been like 30 something, and her husband suddenly died from an aneurysm. So she had no financial experience. I don't even think she was working at the time. I don't even think she had a driver's license at the time. So she was woefully unprepared to take on all the financial responsibilities for her. And, I tried my best, but I love the fact that there's an organization like this that can help people like her in that situation.
And let's finish with Grant.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey, everyone. So my name is Grant, and I'm in Minneapolis, just like Chris is. And likewise, I have my own practice. We're an independent RIA and have a small little team here. And I met Chris about a little over a year and a half now. and have helped a handful of widows, and originally got involved like many of you. Just frankly, for me, it was a particular client in my practice that I was really close to, lost her spouse and needed a lot of help. And, as life often does, I coincidentally happened to bump into Chris through a random newsletter, I think through like a shared working space at the time. And the rest is history. And to all you new coaches, it's a fantastic organization. Hats off to Chris and the whole team. In a year and a half, it's just been an amazing transformation. So you'll really enjoy coaching here, and it's just been wonderful to be a part of it.
Thanks, Grant. We'll send you the $20, next week. So.
And I think that's everyone. We didn't hear from Angelique, but I think she's having some problem with her audio. So we should probably get started.
Yeah. Okay. Angelique, one last chance. Say hi. I saw you earlier. No. Okay. All right. Well, let me share. Then go back. There we go. So a little bit of history. We started, as I said, 2018.
Not sharing yet.
It's not sharing?
Nope.
Okay. Let's go back to. I can't get to Zoom. That's really odd. Won't let me back in the meeting. Keeps bringing up the background. That's very bizarre.
Would you like me to share?
I guess. I mean, I can't even get back into this Zoom call. I can't. I don't know what's going on. That's just very strange. Do you see me?
There you go.
We can see you, but yeah, Carrie, your screen's up now. It's working.
Share again then. I don't know what happened. I got completely locked out of Zoom. Can't see you, can't just hear you.
Can you even see the screen?
There, now I can see it. Okay. Very good. Okay. And everyone sees the screen then, fine? Very good. So 2018 was really proof of concept here in Minneapolis. We were meeting with the 2 or 3 widows. I think there was 4 widows actually that fall, as we were building the organization out. And Leanne and I met with all 4 widows, working on script, working on questions, working on process. At that time, we thought that we needed a widow advocate to walk alongside the financial advisor for lots of reasons, one of which was liability. Rather than meeting a vulnerable widow in her home as a male practitioner, we thought maybe we should bring someone with us. So those were the very early days. Next slide. You can see in 2019, we expanded in Minneapolis. That year, probably coached 20 to 30 widows. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but still very local, right? Pairing local coaches, hiring local coaches, pairing local coaches with, and again, whether they had a CFP or not. I was, I couldn't do it all. So we brought in a few extra coaches and then expanded our widow advocates so that, again, we were still pairing and meeting with these widows. And then the pandemic struck and we were forced to go virtual. And that occurred to us in March, April timeframe, and we literally within 30 days were meeting. We discovered Zoom like the rest of you, and began to. We pivoted very quickly and started building out our new practice, and that meant that we would not be pairing widows virtually. And you can see that we started to explode both with. I wouldn't say explode, but starting to expand beyond Minnesota for the first time, particularly towards the end of the year, where we had recruited coaches one way or another, not through the FFP, but to, you can see Tampa, Houston, and New Jersey. Unfortunately, all three of those folks couldn't be on with us today, but they were the first coaches outside of Minneapolis. And then 2021, you can see as we continue to refine our process, and then secondly, aligned in April and May to be able to open our doors through the FFP to CFP only coaches starting in June. So most of this is since June 1st, and this takes us through the end of October. So you can see that we clearly have a national footprint, and we anticipate 25, active coaches with us, many more in the pipeline, but 25 active coaches by year end yet this year. And we're targeting for 100 active coaches by the end of next year to meet the demand. So that's the brief history that I wanted to share with you. So thanks for being part of that. You are those little orange stars, and I'll pass it to Carrie.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the process. You'll have gone over this in your training, but I kind of wanted to talk you through it as well. It all starts off with the introductory call, which Andrea is going to talk about later. And when she approves somebody to go into the coaching, she will give me that person's name. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the age of that client, and I'm going to look at where she physically is in the country. And then I'm going to reach out to 2 or 3 of you who are in that kind of vicinity and basically say, hey, are you available to take on a new client right now? We really need you to reply to that within 2 days if possible, because I really want to get these widows assigned to coaches as soon as possible, so they're not sitting waiting for 1 or 2 weeks after their interview thinking what's going on. So as soon as I have a coach that has agreed to take on the client, I will set up a DocuSign, which will be a document that is going to be signed by both the widow and the coach. It'll go to the widow first. Once she signed it, it will then go to you. And once you've both signed it, that's going to be your agreement. That's going to state that you're going to provide pro bono coaching to that widow. You're not going to charge for any of your services. You're not going to do this in an attempt to get more business from them. This isn't a bait and switch. There's always the possibility, once the assignment is completed, that widow can hire you if she chooses to, but there's no expectation that she will, and there'll be no pressure for her to do that. Once we receive that DocuSign back, then Dana will be sending out an email to both the widow and the coach to introduce you to each other. That will basically say, this is your coach, this is the widow, and that's where you're going to pick it up. And from there, you're going to contact the widow and say to her, this is, I'd like to meet with you in whatever format, whether you use Zoom, whether you use Google Meets, whether you use WebEx, it's entirely up to you. You're going to use all your own systems. The only one of our systems that we're going to need you to use is Sharepoint, which is where you'll get the folder with the information for the client in it. And we're going to talk about Sharepoint in a little while. But that's going to have in it the progress check, which is like a snapshot form that they will have filled in when they first reached us, which will talk about things like, do they have minor children? What assets do they have? Do they have a vehicle that's licensed in their late spouse's name? That kind of thing. So that's going to give you an overview of where they are, and also the notes from the introductory interview, which we'll talk about in a second. You will manage the whole of the process. You do not need to talk to Wings at all. You don't need to tell us when you're having meetings. We're going to trust that you're managing the process. By all means, at any time, come back to us if you have any questions or if you want any help with anything. But basically, you're going to be managing the whole thing right up until when you think the widow is closed. And that's when you'll notify me again to say it's closed. And at that point, I am going to send you a feedback form where you'll report to me how many hours you've done and also what experience you've had. And I'll also send the widow a feedback form where she will talk about what her experience was like. When I receive the feedback form back from the widow, which I don't always get, but if I do get it, I'm going to send a copy of that to you so you can see what she had to say about her experience with you. These feedback forms we get are such great learning for us. They really have a lot of good information, including some good testimonials, which Chris will share with you later. The only other thing really that's not covered on this slide is sometimes you're going to have a widow that becomes unresponsive. Generally speaking, most of our widows really, really appreciate this service and they're going to prioritize it because this is something that they really want and need. But some of them are just in a very difficult place right now, and they may have the best of intentions and they may set up a meeting and then just not show up, or they might just not respond to your emails. We don't want you to be spending your time chasing after widows when that's the situation. We would like you to reach out, give them a week, send them another note, reach out again. After 2 weeks, if they're unresponsive, please don't keep chasing them, bring them back to us. We have people on staff who will pursue them for you, figure out what's going on, figure out if they need more time, figure out if they just don't want the service anymore. That's going to be my responsibility and Dana's. Just hand them back to us. And then when they're in a place to receive the financial coaching, we'll pass them back to you again. So your responsibility is to coach these widows. It's not to pursue them and to chase them and to figure out what's going on outside of their coaching needs. The people that have already worked with widows, how have you found this process? Has this been helpful for you? Maybe Grant's the one to talk best because he worked with us before we did this process, so we've seen 2 different processes.
It's very helpful. Yeah, the process for me is working great. I think it's wonderful. Yeah, SharePoint's working great. Yeah, everything's great on my end.
Awesome. Anyone else who's worked with a client has anything to comment on this, on the way the process is working? Well, in the interest of time, let's move on. Chris, if you want to talk about what our expectations are for coaches then.
Sure. Just a reminder, and Carrie covered some of this. So, you know, we sort of surveyed the coaches and said, hey, how many is it reasonable that you might work with? So we've arrived at sort of a minimum commitment of 3 clients per year. During our conversations, this is what we talked about. I always mention this, so this should not be a surprise. Meeting with the client, you know, we set it up for 4 sessions within an engagement. Sometimes it goes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. Absolutely okay. Accepting or rejecting client within 2 business days, as Carrie said. It's really important, again, so that they're not delayed in getting matched with a coach. And again, if a client becomes unresponsive, Carrie covered that. Notifying us when it's done. One of the things, I guess I mentioned this later, is that it's important that you know that we're going to go to the client and ask that she complete a survey. And because it's so important, I'm going to recommend one of the tips is to add that to your notes in your 4th session, so that when you've sort of wrapped up and you're saying your goodbyes and you're getting some feedback, which you should be getting from your client, reminder that she's going to get that survey and how important it would be, or how much you have the relationship with that widow now. Wings for Widows really doesn't, but how important it would be to you to have her complete that survey, right? It's important for her to share her experience with us. I think we might get more response. We're probably getting 10%, 20% at most of a response. So we'd certainly like to hear more about that, and hear more from widows about their experience. And again, we'll share those with you. And then, you know, this comes up a lot. I've chatted with most of you about this. You know, this should not be viewed as a commercial opportunity or a way to build your book. But relationships may continue the way we're set up now. We ask that you don't solicit during an engagement, but if you're solicited during the engagement, it's one of these things where you say, hey, let's wrap this up. And then, you know, you've got my contact information. If you'd like to discuss that, we can do that after the engagement's complete. And relationships do continue. And we would much rather have a client work with a CFP who's volunteering their time with us, rather than been thrown out and back into the pool of who knows who they might connect with. So we have no issue with that. In fact, it's preferred, but it needs to come from the client. That solicitation needs to come from the client. And we'll have Go
To
ahead.
add to what Chris is saying, then we are working hard to put you with clients who are in the same state as you, so that you can work with them. It doesn't always happen. We have 50 states. If we have one person in New York and we have 7 clients in New York, we're not going to give all those 7 clients to that one person. That would be overwhelming. But one thing we are going to pursue in the future is finding out from you guys what states you are registered in. So if you're living in a state but registered in other states as well, then that will be something that we consider when we're putting you with a client. That's one of our goals for 2022.
Thanks, Gary.
So moving on to Sharepoint now. Sharepoint is our system that it's kind of like our intranet that we use for keeping all of our personal information about our clients on. We're keeping information on there that we don't want out in the public forum, so we really want it to be protected. So Andy has set it up so it's got 2-factor authentication on it. The folder that you have been assigned, the only people who can access that folder are you, me, and Dana, and Chris, and that's it. None of the other coaches can see your folder. You can't see any of the coaches' folders. The FPPs can't see your folder. It's basically only the staff at Wings and yourself. So we really want to make sure that you can access it, because there's information in there that's very useful to you to use. So I guess the where I want to talk with this, and the reason I have Andy on the call is to answer any questions if anyone has them, is have you all been able to access that SharePoint folder? And I'm not just from the first time when I give it to you, but later when you've been assigned a client or when you've been assigned a second client. So if I could just get some, yep, I'm getting a thumbs up from Grant, so he's getting into it okay. How about other people that have worked with clients?
I think that's
No, not
Ross.
for me.
So Ross, you've not been able to get into that folder?
Yeah, I bookmarked it and then I tried to use it again a few weeks later and it didn't give me access. So I had to go back to the original link you sent and then I accessed it through that, but I didn't access it through the bookmark. It didn't let me in. I should have said something. Sorry, I just kind of.
No, that's okay. That's why we're having this this meeting. Andy.
Well, I had the same issue.
Okay.
Thanks, Frank.
No, but Grant, you've been able to get into it from the bookmark, or have you been having to go back to the initial email?
For whatever reason, I think it's the URL redirection or something. Like it depends when you bookmark it. Because I also initially had the issue where I got into the folder, then bookmarked that. And then when I went back to that bookmark, it didn't work. And I went back to your email. What I did is I copied the URL and edited the bookmark and saved that in the bookmark, if that makes sense to everybody. Because I think it just depends when you bookmark it, and then that will mess up the permissions. So Carrie's original link that you send, as long as you have that URL as the bookmark, it works just fine. And that's how I've been able to get around it.
So in other words, you can't go into the folder and then bookmark it. You need to bookmark it prior to getting to the folder, so that permission, right? You still have to use the 2-factor. Sounds like.
Yeah.
And then Grant, when you go into the method that's working, is it asking you for the 2-factor every time, or is it remembering that you did it before?
It's 2-factor every time for me. It sends me an email with the code every single time.
Okay.
And is that the case, Ross? And I think it was Frank too. I'm sorry, it was Ross who mentioned it. Ross, if you go back to the original email, does it ask you to put in a code?
Yes. So then I get an email, then I put that code in. Yeah.
So that's the intent, actually. Unfortunately, it does keep asking you for that code, and that's mostly because you're everybody here except for myself and Dana, Carrie, and Chris, and I think and Andrea and Marie are. Everybody else is really outside of the SharePoint world that we have. So for you to get in, you have to do the double authentication, but. Yeah, what Grant said was you have needing to go back to the original email and then clicking on the link will work every single time. I'll ask you to put in the code every single time, which is really the intent. But like Grant said, you can copy that link from the original email and create your bookmark or shortcut using that link. And then you can just go to the shortcut or bookmark instead of going back to the email. Does that make sense? And if you need any help, I can do one-on-one with you too. And we can do it offline some other day and kind of walk through it.
What I
And-
would like to do is I'm going to put all that in,
Yeah.
like you just said there, Andy, and Grant confirmed, into an email and send it to you guys. And I would like it if you can test it. In fact, I might resend you all the original links for people that can't find their email. And let's test it and then get back to me. And anybody that's still having problems, I'll connect you with Andy offline, and we can go from there. But I really want to have all of our coaches in a situation where they feel comfortable and confident that they can get into that SharePoint anytime they want to.
The team,
Say, Grant, I'm going to send you a little message here, but can I ask you to forward that original email? I'd like to see if it looks any different from the one that I mentioned in the document that Carrie's going to send out. I just want to make sure that there's no confusion.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
and team, it sounds like, because this is problematic, and as we bring on more and more coaches, once we get this figured out, we can put it into some sort of a PDF graphic and make sure it's available on the internet site as well, so we can refer folks to that, hopefully. Something like that. I'll let you figure that out, Andy. Thanks.
Okay, so I think we've got, the next steps from there. I think we can move on. And Andy, if you want to leave us now, if you have other things to do with your Saturday, thank you very much for joining us. If you want to
Thanks,
stay on,
Andy.
we'd love to have you.
Yes, thank you. And hopefully, if anybody, again, runs into any issues, just individually contact Carrie, and then we'll do something online if we need to. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy.
Andrea, would you like to talk about our introductory call?
I would like to, thank you. So the first face that the new widow, our new client, sees is that of the financial paraplanner. That's myself, Maureen, Nate Ostertag, who used to be a financial coach, but is now in this role. And we have 2 other new women that are being trained on this. So there will be 5 of us going forward. And originally this first Zoom call, so it is a face-to-face, we called it go, no go call internally, of course, because the idea was that we as FPPs would screen the widow and make sure that we could indeed help her, that she wasn't, in such dire straits, financial assistance, welfare, being kicked out of her apartment, that a financial coach was not the right resource. Maybe they needed social services. So that was the original thought, is just to gather a quick little bit of information, but really it was more of a screening call. What we found, however, is that almost all the widows that I talked to passed the screen, because even if they just had a couple questions, like, do I need to pay this bill? It's in my husband's name, or, how do I get, create a new power of attorney? Even those we thought, well, they could benefit from at least a session with one of our coaches. So we changed the purpose of the introductory call for, yes, I am screening. We are screening. Rarely do people get screened out, maybe 3 out of 50 times has that happened. But the main idea here, and this was based on input from the coaches that we had in place maybe 9 months ago, is they really liked that they got a heads up on what the widow's situation was. What was her husband's name? And I'm going to give you an example of what you'll see in the introductory call notes in the next slide. What was the husband's name? What was the manner of death? How long ago was it? How is she presenting emotionally on the call? Is she just crying her way through the call, or this was 2 years ago and she's really ready to get going? So I try and give you that kind of heads up as to just what happened, who is she, how old is she, does she have kids? Just give you a basic idea as to who you will be meeting. We also explain the financial coaching process. Can you go back? Just stay on the other slide first, please. Just right up front, I tell her that some of the coaches are widows, some of them are not, but there is no cost to this. That this is a pro bono organization, and we're doing this because this is a way for our coaches to kind of give back to the community using the skill set that they have. And they like to hear that up front, that reassurance that this is not going to cost them any money. I've also asked about their support network and if they just have nothing. And sometimes they literally are just so lonely and so afraid and so desperate that I refer them to either one of our widows within Wings, or get them connected on our website, because we have had tons of resources there, and there's no reason for them to be walking the grief journey alone. It just breaks my heart when I see that. Also, this is our chance to build some trust and credibility. Rightfully so, some of the widows that come to us are a little, I don't want to say suspicious, but they rightfully are trying to vet us in terms of, are we a genuine, legitimate organization. And so that's another thing that, I really try hard is to build that trust and credibility. So let's take a look at an example of what I create after the call. And I hope that you find it valuable. If you don't, I would like to hear what you would like to see differently or not at all. Okay, so here's an actual introductory interview that I uploaded to this client's folder. I always ask how they found out about us for marketing purposes. Okay, shocking death. Husband was his name. Here's his name, Mark, 55, so young, married a long time, died, in June of 2019. Her age. Then I state emotionally, she was a little rough, and just kind of giving you a heads up on that. What did he do? Is she working? So my first goal in terms of the high level 10,000 foot financial information I'm gathering, and I tell her, I'm like the nurse that comes in before the doctor, takes your blood pressure, gets your vitals, finds out why you're here today, so that when the doctor comes in, she has information. She's not starting from square one. So the first thing I'm looking for is, are you working? Is she working? And is she working? What does she do? Sometimes she volunteers salary. I don't ask for it if she doesn't. If she's not working, what are her sources of income? Okay, how are you living right now? And that usually gives a really good indication of just, does she have strong income issues? By the way, I've already seen her progress check before I got on the call, which is hugely informative, because it tells me, how confident are you that you have the income to meet your monthly expenses 1 to 10? How confident are you in your investments 1 to 10? Do you have a lot of credit card debt 1 to 10? So before I even go into the call, I know from her progress check what are likely the issues. So if she doesn't bring them up, I will then say, you indicated on the progress check that you don't feel confident at all about having adequate income. Can you tell me about that? What are your sources of income? So just keep it very general so that when you get to meet with her, you at least have an idea. So here you see she has $450,000. She volunteered that she got a nice life insurance check. Okay, but she's wondering, I don't have much in the way of income, so how am I going to survive? I need a plan. And so you guys know that when you get it. Then I ask another important question we ask is, what's your housing situation? Do you own your home? Do you not? If you own your home, do you think you're going to want to continue to live there? Or is it too much house or you can't afford it? If you own your home, do you know what your mortgage, how much equity you have? Because that's another asset that you guys could work with. So I try and capture some of that. Again, I don't really probe for a lot of financial details, but a lot of times they volunteer it. And so why not put it down for you guys? If they give me another piece of information that is kind of like so for instance, here, she's trying to figure out whether to sell her home. She's got some decent equity in it. It's a large house, but her adult daughter and her sister have moved in, and neither are contributing to the monthly mortgage payment. I put that only because, maybe that's something that you would want to explore. Should they be contributing as adults if she does have income issues? It's just a freebie piece of information that she volunteered. At the end of the conversation, then once I get off, actually, I sometimes will even ask her, I'll say, so it seems to me, Shirley, that here's what you're saying are your main areas of concern. The first is your house. Should you sell it? Should you not? Yes, that is. You feel like you need an income plan. Would that be accurate? Yes. Do I have to go back to work? So I usually try and validate what her hot topics are and make sure that I have it right so that, it's right when you get it. And so when you then, before you meet with her, you check out her progress check, but more importantly, you see the results of the conversation that we had. So you're not saying, what was your husband's name? How did he die? When did he pass? And you basically have a synopsis, at least high level, of how she presented to us as financial care planners during the call. And it lasts about 30 minutes. And that's where we go with it. So I'll stop and I'll just say, is this something that you would find, that you do or would find helpful before you meet with the client for the first time? Or are we stepping on your toes?
Any comments from those active coaches that are getting this information? Now you know why it's so important that you can access your SharePoint folder, because otherwise you don't get this information if you can't access it. And as you've heard, Andrea and her team put a lot of work into these conversations, and this is as a coach who coached I don't know how many widows, but this is terrific. I mean, it's terrific information to have before you ever meet the client. It's more than we get as advisors, right? When we first meet a client. And
Yeah,
so
I'll
it's
just share that it
extremely
is
helpful.
extremely helpful. It's just fantastic and awesome that you do that. So yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I would second that. Like it means you can. It's not a cold call. It's a warm conversation you have with the widow when you meet them the first time, because you already know the basics. So it's a much more pleasant conversation. So please keep doing it.
Well, and if you guys think of things that you're going, darn, I wish I knew X. I just wish I knew, if I would have known X, maybe we could add it to our script and just reach out to me and we'll talk about it. And the other thing is I tell the client, the widow, that you will be getting these notes. So from a client experience perspective, if you aren't accessing these notes and you're saying, what's your husband's name? When did he pass? That's a negative. That's all happened to all of us, right? Where you tell person one, like 15 minutes worth of information, then you get handed to person two in the same company and they make you start over. It's an insult. It's lack of respect for their time. And frankly, I'm telling them that you will have this information. So if it's not something you're going to use, then we need to talk, because I'm telling the client that you have this information, and that's what her expectations are, so that she doesn't have to start over again. So we're not trying to manufacture work for ourselves. Believe me, if this is, it's good to hear you like it and it's useful, but if it's not, then, we should have a conversation, because I'm telling clients that you're getting this. Does that make sense? Okay.
Absolutely. I got to add a comment here. I've worked for other nonprofit organizations, the Angel Foundation, for example, just to see how they were doing what we're doing, and we've been doing it longer. They started this year. And so I volunteered with them, and it was actually a very great experience working with them. But what I got in preparation for my first client meeting was a form that they had filled out, and it was wholly incomplete. It was nothing like this. And I did feel like I was starting from scratch. This, for those that have executed a session one, how much has to be done in that first session. So this just, if you use this and even use this to help complete the session one, some of those pages, some of those worksheets, you are so far ahead of the game that you will be able to complete session one in the 90 minutes that we like to complete our work in. So it's just terrific what Andrea and her team, where we've evolved with this, and we've had a lot of discussion around this. So by all means, if you have feedback for Andrea and her team, please direct it to her. Make sure, or send it to anybody, and we'll make sure it gets to Andrea. But thank you, Andrea, for all you're doing. It really is a huge help and advantage to our coaches.
It's so rewarding, and I hear the coaches talking about that. Sometimes the widows are in tears at the end of our call. They're so grateful that they don't have to face this alone. Sometimes they're like, I've lost my best friend. I've always had someone to talk to about this. And I always say, you're not alone. I'm so glad you reached out to us. So it's very gratifying, even for the half hour I spend with them. So thank you guys so much for really digging in and helping her. It means so much to them.
Thank you, Andrea. Next slide, Carrie. Well, I think we're right on time, so well done. For those of you who are active and those who are not, you know that I'm pretty passionate about our process. We're very process driven, and the core of that process in terms of the actual financial planning is our Widow's Guide to Financial Wellness. Not because I wrote it, but because it is the best way in the moment to provide a widow after widow, client after client, a consistent, repeatable experience. You heard Andrea mention. In fact, Andrea brought this to our team. A year ago. It was all about a consistently high level of experience, and she was speaking my language. And you've all heard me talk about this. We're focused on the experience, both for our clients and for our volunteers, including our coaches, because we want you coming back, because without you, there is no Wings for Widows. So everything we do is about the experience. Everything we talk about among ourselves is about how do we make it a better experience? How do we get better conversions? Why are they dropping out? It must be an experience. They're not having the right experience. So the workbook allows us to provide consistent information and a repeatable high experience. It's also, after the engagement's done, remember, you're with them 6 hours. It's a reference for them. They're not going to have it all done generally in 6 hours. So it's a great reference for them after the engagement. And for you, talking about great experience, we don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel. It says reinvest. You can tell I'm an investment guy. You don't have to recreate the wheel, right? It's there. It's there for you. It's there for you to use. And if you don't use it, why in the world should the client? But you've got to use it. And again, if you're not, I think you're missing out. And part of it is it's new, but it's entirely built around the widow experience. And I'll come back to that, but it's built, we start with the high priority items, including hot topics that you just heard about from Andrea. That's where we start in session 1. And then we end up in session 4 talking about things that they may take months to get completed. So lower priority items, not as time critical, right? It's set up that way on purpose. I'd like to remind you that, clients don't drive the engagement. You do. Our job, right, at the end of 4 sessions on average, is to have completed or at least addressed all the checklists. Whether they apply or not, is to have covered those. So again, you're driving the engagement just like you would during a regular financial planning engagement in your own practice. But you don't do the work for them. You don't fill out the forms. You don't pull their credit report. You don't do the work that they should be doing. Sometimes, again, we're there as guides, as educators. And sometimes I have sat with a widow and we've done it together, right? We pulled her credit report together. But the whole point is for her to do the work, you empowering her to do the work so that when we're all done with her in 6-7 hours, she's feeling confident, she's feeling in control, and she's able to move forward on her own. You can't provide advice and recommendations if you do not have a clear picture of their financial situation, right? Data gathering, that's session 1. You've got to get it right. There's a training video on the intranet site. If you haven't seen it and you haven't begun coaching, I encourage you to watch that training video. It is the tough session, but if you do that one right, the other 3 follow very nicely after that. And maybe some of the experienced coaches will share that with you. I put here, at no time have I ever instructed a widow to fill out a form. It's just going to be beyond many. That data gathering is you've just got to do it with her. And so if it's required, if you need to work through a form, whether it's income, like if we're talking about cash flow, sources of income, don't tell her that's not good homework right here. Just unless she says, oh, I can do all this. I know all this. I'll take care of this for next time. Great. But otherwise, expect to walk through these forms together. It's okay to give homework. I always try the first homework assignment is have them pull their own credit report. If they can't, then you can do it with them. But extremely important that they do that. And it's okay to give some homework, but keep it reasonable, right? Understand, don't forget who you're working with. And best practice, again, we might be able to fix this for you next year with the new revised guidebook. It is, we're going to take all the feedback from this year and some other things that we've learned, update the guidebook. Hopefully we'll have that out to you from Amazon first quarter next year. But I've done it to my book, and I recommend that until that new book comes out, if you haven't tabbed your pages with the checklist for easy reference, It's the best way to do that. And again, I'll just keep moving to keep us on pace here, Carrie, so we can go through. So this is really where we want to spend the rest of our time, particularly, if you have questions, ask the guys and gals, if I don't think we have any gals experienced coaches other than, I think it's Ramesh, Raj, Grant, and Frank. So if you have questions for them, please ask. If you're curious about anything, this is the time for the sort of the networking, the interactive, and staff's just going to be quiet and let you guys chat. But it's really, if you have an experience or an outcome you want to share, best practice, and I would ask that you share one thing maybe you did or you're still doing that's really helped you getting through an engagement in this process. And I think we can drop the slides and just get everybody back on the screen and just do some sharing right now. Who'd like to kick us off?
I can at least share a little bit since I probably have coached a little bit more, and I'm happy to expand upon any of this, but just my experience for other coaches. There have been several widows that I've helped where we've gone through all of the sessions. They've been very responsive, and it's been very rewarding and fulfilling. And I will echo Chris's point that using the guidebook and leveraging that is fantastic. Most, I would say watch Chris's training as far as the first session goes. Most of my first sessions, I hear, oh my gosh, I got sent this guidebook. This is so overwhelming. Am I supposed to know all of this? And so that's usually introducing yourself, explaining who you are, your background, your experience with wings, and you're passionate. And then it comes up this guidebook, and we talk a little bit about that. Some widows, though, are there just like for one really specific quick question. So I have had a couple of different widows where they really have very close, tight-knit family members that are helping them. They're making good progress, and it's just like one really burning question, and we get through that, and they've just done so much else in the guidebook. So your experience will kind of vary, and this is where reading the notes from Andrea and the information in Sharepoint just becomes invaluable because you understand what you're getting into. Yeah, I think from there, probably just, I think many of you have a coaching mindset, being open, asking good open-ended questions. And, some, just like you work with clients, some people are very open and some are private. And so just putting them at ease, making sure that you know their spouse's name and the background and history is beneficial for building that rapport. And yeah, I don't know how much else I can add. I have, like I said, I've had fantastic experiences, and like Andrea said, some, I'd say at least half of the calls, you'll encounter some sort of crying or tears, and you get through some touching moments. I remember, in fact, the most recent one, I had this happen, and this has happened now 3 different times where on a list, one of the things is, do you have their old cell phone? We talk about, do you have your driver's license and canceling the driver's license? And one thing is their old cell phone, and oftentimes will come up, gee, I still have pictures on there. How do I get the pictures off? Or my most recent widow said, well, gee, I'm going to keep that phone for as long as possible because I call that phone every single day, and I talk to my spouse and I leave them a voicemail message. At first it was very much business. And then when we got to that in that moment, we just really built a unique connection. It was just wonderful. And somebody else on the call, I think it was Dennis, I believe, mentioned one thing that I will just also echo. Unfortunately, a good majority of the widows that I've worked with have some nefarious family members in some way, shape, or form, and protecting them from their family members or from people. I have had several cases where just fishy things have happened and goofy things, and just making sure they understand that they're not, so they don't get taken advantage of, get stolen from, and things like that. But yeah, the guidebook's fantastic. Follow the systems. The training's wonderful, and yeah, I think it's pretty much all I have to add for now.
Thanks, Grant. Appreciate all you do. And I would just mention one thing. You had mentioned sometimes you get one question, they've got a lot done and they're focused. I just want to share a story. I was working with her name's Geraldine, but Jerry, and through our paraplanners, just had one question, and I said, sure, I'll take that. In fact, I think Andrea was on that call. We were at that time we were doing some training or something, so she was on that call. And I love it when I hear I just have one question, because widows do not know what they do not know, right? Widows don't know what they don't know. So that one question is the most important thing to her, but it's probably not the only thing she needs help with. And in Jerry's case, big family, 7 children, plenty of assets. She's going to be fine, but she just had one question. Well, we answered that question. And then I asked her another question. I said, so you since you only had one question, you probably pulled the credit reports. You probably checked on Mark's credit report, right? She goes, what? And I said, pull the credit report, make sure that, there's been no nefarious activity, that about all the accounts that are that he had, that they're not active. No, I didn't do that. So, okay, well, we're out of time today. Why don't we set up a second meeting? We can pull your credit reports together. So we did that. And then question after question after question. We worked 5 sessions, and so I wanted to share that story. Oftentimes they believe they have one question, and it's just such a great opportunity that they will connect with us with just one question, because more than likely there will be dozens of questions. You just need the time to uncover those. And the best antidote that I always go to is the credit report, because nobody pulls them and nobody knows how to pull them. They've never pulled them. And what an eye opener that experience is, that evolution, that event is with them. And it just builds a bond, and it gets you into just this whole nother area of questions that you're going to have a full experience with that client. So that would be my comment on that, Grant. Ross, you've had some experience. What about the second one you worked with? How about sharing that one?
Yeah. So my second one was very, very new. She had her husband had passed away just a month before I started working with her. And I guess my success story wasn't necessarily anything I did besides just trying to help her get started and be confident. When we started, she hadn't informed the credit card companies, the bank, anyone that he had even passed away. So we kind of had to she just was so struck with grief that she didn't know where to start and what to do, which I'm sure is very common. And a lot of my thing didn't even have to do with financial expertise. It was yes, now is the time to do this. She was worried about them taking advantage of her. And I said, it'd be great if you have a friend or a family member you trust to make those calls together. And she kind of did one a day, because it was a lot. All this was still a lot for her. So we kind of took baby steps with everything. And after our second meeting, she was like, great, I informed everyone and it wasn't as bad as I thought. And she kind of got that monkey off her shoulder. And then helping her refer to an estate attorney that she needed to talk to, or a tax accountant that she needed to discuss with, and just kind of realizing that she needed to come up with a plan and find some people she trusts, because even if it's just me, I can't help her with everything she needed as well. So I guess that would be my success story as well, just kind of make sure she was surrounded with the people she needed to help her, because what we do is helpful and nice, but limited and short, unfortunately. So that was my thing, and 3 months go by, and I think she saw it, but I definitely saw the progress she made on her own and her confidence. And I feel much more comfortable now with her out there handling these things than when I did when she started. And I could see that very quickly. So that's kind of the best I could share in terms of that experience with her.
Great.
If I can add to that, Ross mentioned the word plan. Sometimes we'll get widows and they'll get like a 94% on their progress check. And I'm looking at it going, I probably wouldn't even get a 94% on my progress check. So usually it is because they have one question. But what often happens is they'll say, I just wish I had a plan. I wish that I knew if I could buy the couch or the new car. I mean, how do I know I'll be okay if I do that? I pull the trigger and do it. I just wish I knew when I could retire. I knew where the money was going to come from. And I said, boy, have you come to the right place? This is what we do is, I say it's in a way, the fact that you don't have any emergent issues means that your financial coach will be able to work with you on actually crafting a plan, like going forward with your life so that you can follow it and have that confidence and hope and not be wondering if you can buy if you can replace your car. And so I kind of like those clients. I hope you guys do too, because there you're not dealing with, okay, need to call and cancel the driver's license. We help those people obviously as well, but it's kind of fun, I would think, if you have some clients where it's really about building the future, helping them have to plan for the future, right?
Good point, Andrea. Good point. Frank, how many of you worked with? One widow so far? You want to share your experience with your client, Frank? Frank is, I know he's taking care of his daughter, so maybe he's changing a diaper. Any questions from anyone at this point? Stay on time. I think we're still good for a few more minutes. Anyone questions for the coaches?
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Sure, Frank.
Yeah, I hit a mute button I couldn't find again. Sorry, I was talking for like a while. Yeah, no, I'm on my first client. It's been a great experience. The information I got before was really productive. She was pretty put together, but there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be going on. Like beneficiaries are all over the place, and like easy stuff. Had the first meeting. The second one just reached out to her because it was close to the anniversary of the death, and she was like, "Yeah, no, let's push it so I can think clearer." So I'm looking forward to the next one. But amazing experience so far. I think she's very appreciative of just having someone to ask those questions to, because she had an advisor, sort of, but she didn't really feel like she got anything out of it. And like at the end of the meeting, she was like, "This was way more than I thought I would get." So it was just a great start. I have a couple more meetings with her, and yeah, no, I definitely think we're going to leave her in a much better place afterwards.
Awesome, Frank. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you. And Ramesh, are you still driving, or do you at home? You want to share your experience? I think you've worked with Wrapped Up 2 already. Anything you want to share with us?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me well this time? It's the same. Hello?
Yeah, we hear you, but it's tough. It's tough. Yeah.
Let me just speak up as much as I can. Yeah, so I have completed with 2 of them, and then the first widow that I worked with, her husband passed away, I think almost 2.5 years ago, and then she had done lots of things already in place, so it was pretty quick dealing with her, but she definitely. What I found working with both of them that I have completed, they just need assurance from coaches that what they're doing is right thing, or how to think about some of the things. So I'll give an example of the first one I coached. So she had a summer home that she uses from her dad. And then she has already paid some amount to that home. And then her dad has promised that he's gonna give that home to her in a few years or whenever they pass away. But it's not sure what's gonna happen and how much he's gonna offer that for. So she wasn't sure what to think about it. She said, "Oh, I already paid this much, $30,000. How that means it's in my best interest to get that home whenever he offers it." So I kind of told her that whatever money you already put in, that's already gone out of your pocket, and it's not that your dad is going to give that money back when he offers the home if you don't take it. So the way to evaluate will be to look at that point in time how much the home is worth, and if you take it, how much you're going to get out of your pocket, and how much if you don't take it, just compare those two options. So she said, "Yeah, that makes sense because this what has already happened has happened." So just example of like, and she was really pretty smart lady, so she knew how to think about lots of things, but this few things that we can help them really keeps them grounded. And the second one that I finished, she lived in a home with her husband who had been sick for a long time, and then when he passed away, she couldn't live in that home because of the emotional connection. So she's renting another place and renting out her own home, and then she gets very emotional about thinking about it. It's not just a financial decision for her to whether keep the earlier home or sell it off. So they really appreciated, both of them, the coaching that we provide and the guidance we provide and expertise we deliver to them. So I just wanted to share what my experience had been, and luckily I have some extra time now the past few weeks and going forward also, so I'm able to do more frequently. That's why I finished 2 of them, and I'm already working with the third one that I already did 1 session. So and again, to echo everybody else's experience here, the preliminary question that you guys talked to and put together with the widows is extremely helpful, because I'm not starting out with what's your husband's name and how he passed away, those things, although I do do a little bit so that to build the rapport, but I already know the basic stuff, so that's really, really helpful, all the information in the SharePoint. And again, I want to thank Chris and everybody there to taking this endeavor on your, because these people really need help and they don't know who they can trust. So when they find us, I think it's really reassuring to them that they can trust somebody, some people with their situation when they're really vulnerable.
Ramesh, thank you. I know some of that was hard for us to hear, but I think I picked up enough. 2 great experiences. Both widows very much appreciate what we're doing for them, having someone that they can trust, someone that can provide advice, and that sort of, I mean, it's just extremely rewarding, and I think that we heard that as well from Ramesh. Just in the 10 minutes that we have left, Carrie, can we go back to the slides? Thanks everyone for sharing, and if you do have questions, again, you can include them on the chat, or after the call, for sure, you can ask questions, of course. I just wanted to share just a few testimonials. I think there was one before this, but that's okay. We may not get through them all, but you can just read this. This is coming right from the feedback. I took all, I had 3 of them out here, right from the surveys that the widows complete. So again, this is a great opportunity during your 4th session to let them know that Wings for Widows will be contacting them, asking for their feedback, and you'd love it, right? If they would share their experience with us, and we will feed that back to you. So this is from Emily, and you can see what she says here, and it's just pretty much what we've been hearing from the experienced coaches. This is sort of the feedback, right, that they get, this gratitude, so thankful that we're there, and the work that we're doing for them. We can go to the next one, Carrie. From Gail. give them time to read it.
Yeah, maybe I should read it out for the people that are on the phone. Wings for Widows is a wonderful organization for anyone going through the loss of a spouse. They are compassionate, caring, and know how to address any type of situation. Response to answering questions, putting someone at ease, and just coaching for what's ahead. Whether you know exactly what is needed or need a boost, they are the ones to help and guide you. My coach, Melissa, is great.
By the way, Melissa's couldn't join us today, but she's a terrific coach. Her operation, her practice is down in Houston, and she's also great at relationships, which is why she's probably a great financial advisor. So we drafted her into a chairperson on the board of directors as our chair of business development. So as our relationship manager. So there is life after coach with Wings if you do get tired of coaching. But you can see here a couple of these testimonials are from her. Next slide, Carrie. So I just wanted to share this. I call this sort of odds and ends. And I've shared this with some of you, and it's good to keep in mind, particularly for maybe the more experienced coaches that given a little different spiel now when I talk to folks. But think of us as financial triage, right? I think Andrea mentioned, I'm starting to see sort of this whole hospital analogy shape up, right? She mentioned, I feel like the nurse before the doctor comes in. And, it's like checking in an emergency room, right? These folks have had a loss. It causes financial trauma, which could be any number of things. And they come to Wings for Widows, the emergency room, to get some help. And we perform financial triage. Think of it as that, not outpatient care, not a long-term care. As someone said, we only have so much time to work with, and we're not going to get everything done. So no, it's about stopping the bleeding, getting them to the ICU, and getting them into recovery. We're not going to be able to fix everything. So it's perfectly natural when you're done with them that they still have a list of things to do. And what we haven't said is it is entirely acceptable if they have questions to come back. And since you have the relationship with them, right, they're going to come back and ask you. So just remember that. If you see that strange email come in, that it may not be a client, it might be someone who you worked with. Coach or advisor, this comes up a lot. We call you coaches, right? Because it's easier than saying pro bono CFP financial advisor. We call you a coach, but you can provide advice. That's what separates us from all the other coaches out there doing education and financial literacy. We're financial planners. That's what we do. And because we work through the FFP, we're able to provide advice. And that's why we switched over from our previous model earlier this year to the FFP model, because it allows us to do our job like we're used to doing it. I would caution, this came up in a conversation with a recent prospective coach. He says, should I just use am I using my Money Guide Pro? And it's like, no, I have it, you have it. Others have it, Navaplan, whatever software you're using, that's not a requirement. We provide you all the tools that you need. And again, the core tool is the Widow's Guidebook. Don't feel that because you're financial planners and you're used to using Money Guide Pro. One day we will look at, probably sometime next year, we'll look at being able to offer, right, buy the license to Money Guide Pro and be able to have that. But that would be for more advanced planning, which could be down the road. But for you and what we're doing and financial triage, we're not using Money Guide Pro. Use the guidebook and stick with that. We never recommend, this probably goes without saying, even though we provide advice, we never recommend investment products, particularly annuities or investment advice. This is why you can work with a client in Nebraska or anywhere, frankly, if you're not registered in that state. The only time the question of registration comes into play is if she's soliciting you or he's soliciting you. We do work with widowers. If they're soliciting you, right, they want to continue to work with you. Well, that's why Carrie said we'll start as we get more and more coaches and more widows, assign them by state so that that's not an issue. But right now, it might be an issue. So just realize that we're not providing investment advice and But it doesn't mean that you can't provide advice otherwise. And then, as I said, during your last session, please let them know that they're going to be receiving that survey about their experience and their advisor. Next slide, Carrie. So we're wrapping up. Questions, concerns, or comments today or otherwise? Anyone? I guess we covered it all, Carrie. You did such a wonderful job. Andrea, thank you. Andy, if you're still on, thank you. We're going to finish early. That'll be a first.
I think that's unheard of. I mean, from my perspective as a Wings employee, this has been, I have learned more in the last hour and a half than I have, I think, in the last year. This has been such a great experience for me to meet you all and to see how passionate you all are and see what your motivations are for doing this. And this has been a really, really good session. So thank you for showing up and thank you for sharing.
Anyone? I think it's time either, if you're an Eastie, it's time for lunch, or your stomach's growling. If you're West Coast like Ross, it's time for breakfast. So we'll let you we'll let you move on. Again, thank you so much for your commitment to us and to the community that we serve. Again, we could not do this without you. And look for great things to come. There are a number of neat things coming next year, which we'll save for another time. But again, thank you for all that you do for us, and have a wonderful weekend.